So in the last video, we got a handle on useState via class-based component refactoring. In this video, we're going to take it a little bit further, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that we get from useState and how it's really not that complex. It's just JavaScript. So to illustrate this, we're going to be taking some of our state stuff out of our component itself and actually getting to pass those into some sort of a reusable function so that you can see how this stuff works in maybe different scenarios. So let's get diving into that right now. Okay, so in the last video, we did some interesting stuff by having this toggle here. And granted, we're going to leave the toggle where it is, but we are going to remove this H3, and for no real important reason other than the fact that we're just going to add in a form here instead. So let's go ahead and have a form. Okay, just like this. Okay, so nothing really crazy here. It looks like prettier is going to make my code look a little prettier. That's cool. What we're going to be doing in this video is showing how you can use the name, set name, or any of your state stuff. Well, you can use these things just like any other variables in your code. You can pass them around. You can do stuff with them, and you can run these functions. Well, you can run them elsewhere. For instance, you might be thinking maybe we have some sort of form submitting code. Maybe we're importing this from somewhere. In this example, what we're simply going to do is just pretend that this is coming in from somewhere else, or maybe this is a reusable function. So we're going to say const form submit, and this is just going to be equal to a simple arrow function like this. Now, many times what we would want to do here is, well, this actually handles maybe an API call, or maybe it's just doing something where it's sending this info out. Since we don't have anything like that set up, we're simply just going to have a console log. I know that is kind of dumb, but it's for illustrative purposes here. I'm going to say email sent. Okay. So this is pretty standard that this form submit is going to run when the form submits. And we could come up top here and we could say form on submit, and we could have this equal to. Now, this is going to be equal to an arrow function. Now, why? Well, particular because I want to have the event in here, and we can say E, and we can say e.prevent default. This is going to prevent the form from refreshing the page, okay? So we have this just generic on submit e event default, okay? And we also want to be passing in some things into our form submit function, which is going to be form submit, okay? So here we have this basic form where when we submit it, it's going to prevent it from reloading the page, and then we're going to have a form submit. So right now, let's actually add a button that just says submit. Okay. Right now, we should have an input here, and when we click the submit button, we should see a console log that just says email sent. Okay. Let's go ahead and come in here. We have some really nice looking buttons, ugly everything else. Let's go ahead and type in here. We can say, all right, this is going to be a new email. We're going to say scott@leveluptuts.com, and we can go ahead and click submit. Now, when I click submit, you'll see that we do get the email sent down here exactly. But typically what we want is the input to be cleared. And now you could always just have this form submit living inside of your function here, but let's say we always wanted this to be able to be used with different types of forms. And now this example isn't necessarily the most practical using an email form, but you will encounter things like this, where you want to access the name and set name inside of a third-party function that maybe is reusable. Maybe not third-party, but maybe just a function that you're passing around and becomes reusable. Well, the cool thing is because name and set name are now variables in a function, you can sort of do anything you want with these. For instance, we can pass in name and set name into our form submit function. And if we come down here, what we can do is set those names of those parameters. For instance, we can just call this be value and then set value. Now, why am I renaming these? Only because this is going to be generic, right? This isn't necessarily always going to be name or whatever. We're simply just going to be taking email sent to, and then we can say, let's do plus. This is the old way. Let's say value. Okay, email sent to, and then we can then actually run our set value function and pass in an empty string. Now this is interesting because we're no longer necessarily calling the setName function inside of our component anymore, but we're simply just calling a standard setValue function. And whatever that is what's passed into here. So what the intention here is that when we hit submit and we submit our form, that the input with the text should clear. So we really didn't do a whole lot fancy here other than pass in our state value and our set function into another function. And this is just to illustrate that these things are just functions and values. And again, if we say Scott at leveluptuts.com, hit submit, watch this. We get email sent to Scott at leveluptuts.com and we get the input cleared. Okay? So this is just a small lesson, but again, what we can do is we now have access to take these and do anything with them that you would expect to be able to do. There is nothing necessarily magical about name and setName. The only thing is that when you call setName, it's going to trigger a re-render because name is going to be changed here. Okay? So we're going to be getting in a little bit more into what could be seen as life cycle in the very next video as we dive into useEffect. Now, useEffect is going to be one of the most used hooks, but in the same regard, maybe the most mysterious. So fire it up as we dive into the most exciting part about React hooks, which is useEffect.